Sorry. G'day, I'm Daniel Jones from Tactical Force Combatives. Just a bit about myself before I start. I've worked a bit over 15 years previously as a psychiatric nurse and did a lot of work with forensics, a lot of work with criminals, antisocial people. Worked quite a few years in security, nightclubs again, dealing with drunks, antisocial people. Had a lot of experience with violence, self-defence as well. I've personally trained extensively at Guardian Defence through the old tactical Krav Maga with Carl Haley, that is now the tactical Hagana Asmit, and at RV's IDF training centres. Today I'd like to talk about types of criminals, the prevention, law and order, the escalation and use of force and self-defence as a means of trying to keep yourself safe from the rise of crime that's happening in Melbourne. Currently we're seeing an increase in crime from carjackings, home invasions, where we've had people now using it, where it is actually escalating to not just your home being invaded, but people being tied up, the use of weapons, and people being intimidated or moved to secondary locations as well. People are being beaten and assaulted on the streets. Some examples being recently the Moomba, the Flinders Square and St Kilda, and even the American tourists who were over on a holiday just coming back from the tennis. With the two types of criminals, traditionally what we used to see were resource predators who would usually only want possessions. People who would attack you and all they wanted was your wallet, your car, your keys, and it was generally as simple as giving them your possessions and they would leave. The other type of criminals you will generally see are process predators who actually love the process of what they do. So we're talking about murderers, rapists, people who actually enjoy hurting people. And lately what we're starting to see with the rise in crime is actually an amalgamation of these two things. So you've got people breaking in, looking for the resource. They're taking your car, they're taking your possessions, they're breaking into your house, but they actually are enjoying the process. There is a sick and perverse sort of pleasure they're getting out of emulating things like American rap culture, games like GTA, and breaking into people's houses. The thing with criminals is they're generally not looking for a fight. They're not looking to get caught, which is why I believe prevention is first and foremost the most important thing in trying to stop having people's cars stolen, having them hurt, having them beaten, having homes invaded. I believe one of the big consequences, as a few people have touched on here, is a lack of consequences for the actions of these people within the court system, which is actually reinforcing the negative behaviour. So we've got the police that are doing their job, arresting these people, and then what we've got is the courts that aren't backing them up, which is a major issue. They're getting off on bail, they're repeating offenders, they're coming out of bail, they're just recommitting the crimes and going back in. Alternatively, they're put into the youth, the old Tirana lockups, where they're getting rather light sentences. They're just meeting people who are basically just mentoring them in how to be better criminals. I truly believe we need to look at the system in where they're locked up and how that's ran as well, because at present we're just rewarding their poor behaviour and teaching them to be better at what they do. With the prevention of crime, it's always better to have to use prevention than self-defence, as any time you do use self-defence, whether in your home, car or street, you're risking getting hurt, basically. It's just the way it is. At home, people need to look at things like lights, security motion lights, the idea of locking your doors, security doors, and locking the windows. One big thing with the house is, again, with criminals not wanting to be caught, is cutting down the shrubs, no big fences so that your house is visible. so that you can see what's happening with both, or your neighbours can see what's happening with you and you with them. With the car, it's always important to keep your door locked and never leave the keys running in the ignition. I actually remember as a kid it was quite common for parents to leave cars and keys in the ignition, but unfortunately at the moment a lot of these carjackings are happening when people leave the keys in the ignition, go to pay for fuel, and then it's just an opportunity thing they're taking as well. And of course the situational awareness of when you drive, knowing what cars are around you. One of the big tactics they had been previously using is bumping into people's cars and then using the good nature of people against them, knowing that you will get out your car, you will go and see what's happening, go talk to, which is normal for most people. And they then exploit that by jumping out the car with 4 or 5 people with batons, bricks, guns, whatever they can get their hands on, and attacking people. In the street, the most important thing is people need to start realising about situational awareness, the idea of looking confident, keeping your eyes up, your chest out, the use of your body language. You know, not always do you see a lot of people are constantly walking down on their phone, and to these people that indicates to you very quickly that you're not paying attention, that you are an easy target. Again, the idea of avoidance is always better. If you can see that there's going to be a problem with these people, that you walk away before they even reach you. I think the importance of community is very important. Getting to know your neighbours. A lot of people these days don't know their neighbours. Swapping numbers with them, watching each other's houses, being aware of what's happening. The reason for this being that if more people are aware, if more people know what's going on, it becomes harder for people to break into houses. It becomes harder for them to do anything because your neighbour's watching your house. You've instantly got people that are going to be calling the authorities, calling other people in, going over to help. It's the old mentality of, if you look over with animals, safety in numbers. Lately there's been talk of the idea of setting up response groups. The idea that someone within a community would have a phone, and that if you message these people in distress, your location, they would try to get people out to you as quick as possible. I think we need to start setting up groups like the old neighbourhood watches and things like that, where we can keep people safe. In all honesty, I stole that idea from the True Blue crew, who were the ones, to their credit, had come up with that idea. As far as use of self-defence, if you do run into a problem, in Australia we have a thing with the use of force. You need to be starting to ask yourself now, before you actually get into trouble, about what is reasonable. You need to ask what you're willing to fight for, and what are you willing to risk if and when these people come, and what's happening. Recently I saw a video of a Russian bloke. He was put in the back of a cop car. He actually stabbed the 2 coppers to death, and his rationale for this was that he'd been caught drink driving and that he didn't want to lose his job. I can guarantee he lost his job, but it certainly highlights just how much some people are willing to risk over little things. The problem is too, like, you need to start looking at things like these people are casing your property. So if you've left your car out, they've broken into your home and they want it, if you can get away with simply just giving them the keys, that is much better. Possessions are much more easy to replace than human life. But if you cannot, you need to start looking at where you draw the line, and what they're going to do, and if they're going to hurt you, if you feel like they're going to hurt you. Lately we've seen an increase in them tying people up, moving people to other things, hurting people's families. My advice there would be, you need to draw the line at exactly that point. Never allow yourself to be restricted, tied up, or moved anywhere besides where you're at. To me, that is a go point where you need to act on these people. I can't guarantee that you won't be hurt. I can't guarantee that they won't fight back, but I can guarantee, absolutely, no matter what they say or what happens, if you allow that to happen, absolutely nothing good is going to come from it from that point forward. Currently in Australia, one of the big problems we have is we don't have the castle law, or the castle doctrine, about protecting one's own property. The law, as it is, states that even if someone breaks into your home and they are found guilty, depending on your use of force, if you can't justify what you've done or why you've done it, you can still be sued for damages by the actual perpetrator who's broken into your home. One of these cases in point was a man named Benjamin Bartham, I think it was. He woke up to a guy in his house who had previously had child sex offences against his name, and he caught this person standing over his kid in his room. The problem where he ran into trouble with the idea of the reasonable use of force and self-defence was that he chased the man down the street, choked him out and killed him. Although many of us would agree with this as not being a bad thing, the problem is justifying something like that in court is it's no longer self-defence when you're considered not at risk of being hurt. Okay, with looking at the use of force, there's a lot of different things, the idea of presence, voice, touch, moving from simple restraint to pain compliance and all the way up to lethal force. You can skip a lot of that because you're already there. The presence obviously isn't working. Asking them to leave obviously isn't going to work. They're violent criminals, they're there for a reason. You need to start moving up to either feigning complying, giving them the keys and hoping they leave, or making a judgment call that if you're feigned compliance and they've not complied, they are going to stay, they are going to ask for more, whether you're willing to risk acting in self-defence and taking it to these people and actually going physical with them in an attempt to keep you, your property and your family safe. But most importantly, you need to be able to justify your actions. Okay, so if you've picked up a kitchen knife as you're going after these people and you've had to use it against them, you may be able to justify that. Stabbing someone in the back as they run off, not so much so. I'd just like to finish the speech. Unfortunately, there's a lot to cover, not much we can get into a whole speech, but I would implore people to start looking into the idea of self-defence, into the idea of prevention, and to really start considering and thinking about what they would do if they were attacked. I'd like to highlight that with saying all of this, it's not victim blaming. It's very important to remember that the victim is never actually at fault. It is absolutely not normal to think about or to go around carjacking, intruding into others' homes, spaces, or hurting other people. And it's certainly not, up until recently, been normal to think about this. I've never met people who normally think about, well, what would I do if I'm carjacked? What would I do if my home was invaded? Unfortunately, the times we live in, this is becoming an increasingly normal and new thing that we do need to think about. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel.